Equipped with various offensive and defensive weaponry, especially their twin-repeating blaster cannons and personal shield generators, the Droidekas were droids designed and manufactured on Kola 4 by the Kolakoids to be extremely dangerous and lethal machines that terminated their targets with absolute efficiency. With their shield generators active, the Droidekas stood on 3 legs and fired at their foes while they could stay relatively protected from blaster damage, as they mowed down their targets with their twin-repeating blaster cannons. During the Clone Wars, the Republic's forces had to either call in artillery or somehow get an EMP through the Droidekas' shields as their best chance of overwhelming the deadly droids' defenses. Now, while standing, they couldn't move very fast, but by changing their shape and coiling into a ball, the Droidekas were able to charge across the surface up to 75 kilometers per hour, either to make their escape or to pursue their enemies. Called Rollies by the Republic's clone soldiers, but also known as destroyer droids, the Droidekas were used during the Trade Federation's occupation of Naboo, and later in the Clone Wars, by the Confederacy of Independent Systems. Thanks to the extreme strength and power of the Droidekas' shields, attacks from high-velocity short-range weapons were effortlessly deflected or even repelled, leaving traditional blasters and other sidearms completely useless against them. What made the Droidekas especially brutal to engage against were their ability to fire through their own shields, while their enemy remained unable to penetrate them from the other side. This was because of the polarization of the shields, which caused them to phase, so that the Droidekas' own blaster bolts were able to shoot through, but the shields would still work as a barrier against any projectiles coming in towards them. There weren't many handheld weapons powerful enough to penetrate their incredible strength, but dangerous and powerful as they were, the Droidekas still had their weaknesses. For instance, they couldn't see behind themselves, and when they were up against slow-moving weapons such as unhurried rolling thermal detonators, or even stationary objects, their shields were ineffective. The Jedi were able to utilize the Force against the deadly droids during the war, which was clearly not an option for the clone troopers, so soon enough, they came up with their own effective method of dealing with the destroyer droids instead. Through a 3-staged assault, some troops would create a distraction, while other clones would simultaneously come at the Droidekas from a rear attack, combined with a well-timed throw of an electromagnetic pulse grenade, and the killing machines were neutralized. Another weakness of the otherwise extremely formidable droids were in how the shields functioned when they enclosed the Droidekas in their standing positions. If the destroyer droids were to be pushed up against a wall or knocked on their sides, the shields were not able to distinguish between the floor or the wall from that of blaster bolts or lightsaber blades. This could lead them to overload, as the generator had to continue to supply energy to the shields. Also, during the moments the Droidekas were in their rolling positions to make their way from place to place, their shields could not operate, which left them in a temporary vulnerable state. Then there was the strength of their shields, which were weaker from behind, meaning the destroyer droids were easier to deal with from that position than attempting to come at them head-on, let's say. Moving upstairs and maneuvering on downward slopes were conditions also known to give the Droidekas a difficult time. They would need the right speed and momentum to launch themselves upstairs in their rolling position. Now, if they tried to climb the stairs on their 3 legs, it was possible, but it was extremely difficult for the droids to coordinate. Then another trick they used against the droids was to counterintuitively get very close to the Droidekas, disrupting their limited targeting abilities. The closer a target was to the destroyer droids, the more likely they were to miss because of how their arms were spread out. After the end of the Clone Wars, even though the Empire made battle droids illegal, Droidekas, like every model of separatist droids, made their way to the black market, where they came into the possession of the various criminal scum and villainy in the seedier side of the galaxy. Hope you enjoyed today's video about Droidekas. Have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you in the next episode of Star Wars Theory. Until then, remember, the Force will be with you, always.